If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review for you guys, and today we're talking about one of the most anticipated albums for me, maybe not for everybody else, but for me, the 8th studio offering from one of my all-time favorite bands, Avenged Sevenfold, Life is But a Dream. So this came out on June 2nd, back on Warner Brother Records, which never thought that would ever happen, considering it had been 10 years since the last album they did on Warner Brothers, Hail to the King, and then huge falling out between the band and Warner Brothers, and then they went to Capitol Records. Now they're back on Warner Brothers, so I wonder what happened behind the scenes between Warner Brothers and Avenged Sevenfold. But anyway, so yeah, this is their first album in nearly 7 years. It'd been nearly 7 years since the last album, The Stage, came out, which I was a huge fan of. I was like, wow, Avenged Sevenfold going progressive metal, pretty much full swing. And I think that's still one of the best Avenged Sevenfold albums they've ever done. Now with this, considering it had been such a long gap between studio output in terms of full lengths, it made me curious, where is the band gonna go? Considering the band never sounds the exact same on every single album. Like, they're always willing to change things up, even if it's just minor tweaks. There's no two albums that sound exactly the same, which that's one of the big reasons why I love this band. And plus, they were a huge gateway for me getting into metal when I was just a little wee lad 20 years ago. Jeez, I can't believe it's been that long, but I digress. So with this album, Life is But a Dream, going through this, seeing the track listing, I was very intrigued because this is 11 tracks. It's only a little over 53 minutes, so it's not like super long like some of the previous Avenged Sevenfold albums had been, where they push an hour, maybe even over 70 minutes. Here it's only a little over 50 minutes on this album, so the first half of this album is where you get like the real long songs. Second half, they try and write some more compact pieces in like a shorter format. We're going to get to that second half because there's a lot to talk about. But the first half, kicking things off with Game Over, starts off with this like beautiful classical guitar opening, and then right after that, big chunky riff and into a D-beat stomp, but more like the thrash metal D-beat, kind of like Overkill and Exodus, like that kind of a D-beat stomp. And it even stays kind of thrashy throughout the majority of this song before it returns to that classical guitar, and even some like old film ambience comes in. Even haunting piano comes in before you even get a little blast beat, which blast beats has been a thing featuring now in Avenged Sevenfold since the stage. Ever since they got Brooks Wackerman on drums, he's capable of doing some more craziness, like implementing blast beats into Avenged Sevenfold. Then we get into the song Mattel. Wonder if it's about the action figure company or the toy company. I don't know, I digress. Big driving riff right away. Even a bass line comes in. Like, if there is something to behold about this album, the bass work from Johnny Christ on this album is really strong, and I think that's because he had more songwriting credits on this album. Like, he really helped out a lot when it came down to the songwriting, so his bass work is pretty much mostly on full display, at least in certain parts on this album, and definitely here on Mattel, it really kind of takes hold. But then you get real chugging riffs on top of a really cool groove with like a cool, almost like speech effect on M. Shadow's vocals. Now, to talk about M. Shadow's vocals, definitely on this album especially, his vocals have been weathered in the past 7 years. Like, you know, he's now in his early 40s, as some people may not know. He's now in his early 40s, so definitely his voice is maybe not as strong as it used to be, and there's even a couple of moments on this album where his vocals did sound a little bit off, but he's pushing himself in terms of like different tricks, like even doing like low gothic vocals, some spoken word sections here and there throughout, or even trying out different effects to like give off more of that atmosphere and ambience to the song or a certain part. And like here on Mattel, it's like this cool speech effect that's going on. You even get some like big roars from Matt on this album, including here, and it just brings us back to that driving riff, and then you get another roar, and into a really killer breakdown, but with a synth solo that's gradually followed by the guitars. Now, synths are a big thing on this album. Like, they were shown here and there on the stage, but it was fitting considering that was a concept album about artificial intelligence and war and destruction and all sorts of stuff. So having those synths when they were peppered in there on the stage was appropriate. Here, especially, well, on the first half, you get synths, but they're more there to kind of complement what's going on within the songs. But then we'll get to the second half, because I got a lot to talk about the second half, but anyways. And then even at the end, or towards the end of Mattel, big death metal chug just comes in out of nowhere. And it's brief, but it was a huge highlight of the album for me to hear a bit of a death metal chug kind of show up out of nowhere. Then we get to the song Nobody, which was the first single released of the album. And this is very much kind of a song that could have been on the stage. Like, it's very lavish, very progressive all throughout, but it's also kind of doomy. Like, one of the doomiest things I think Avenged Sevenfold has ever done. And even the bass beefs up a little bit, and whenever the synths do come in, it provides darkness throughout. And there are even moments, and there are a few songs on this album where I got a lot of hints of Gojira, and I have to think maybe Avenged Sevenfold was inspired by Gojira a little bit, considering they did tour together along with Metallica about 6 years ago on the Hardwired tour. So I have to think Gojira, especially after listening to like albums like Magma and maybe even the last one, Fortitude, kind of inspired the band to kind of go into that direction a little bit with some of the grooves and some of the more kind of lavish passages. And I love how on the chorus, it's not poppy. Like, you don't get a whole lot of poppy choruses on here. And on this chorus on Nobody, you get like really cool tapping guitars from Sinister Gates. Dark orchestral section, and then it gets into a gorgeous shredding lead at the end. Now we get to the second single, We Love You, which I heard a lot of people were mixed on this song. I can understand it to some degree, like there are some odd moments on here, but I really liked it. Has a big thrashy beat at the beginning, but you do get like odd vocal tricks to kind of start. Then you get like a little break as the song does build, kind of similar to like classic Avenged Sevenfold, like City of Evil, White Album, Nightmare era, where they get like these little build-up moments with like driving riffs and cool drum flair. Then you get like a cool soothing spacey ambient section out of nowhere. Then you get a very intense and aggressive, dare I say brutal, thrash metal section that comes in flying, wild shredding lead, and then you get like almost computer sounds, which does help to give this song a bit of a futuristic vibe before you end with beautiful acoustic guitars. Cosmic, this is one of the big standouts on here. The longest track of the album at 7.5 minutes, so they didn't go too overboard. This song, dare I say, has some Dream Theater and even Pink Floyd levels of just beautiful. Like, this is mostly like clean guitars all throughout, has this great opening melody, great bass work throughout on top of like an atmospheric lead, and even that lead progresses even further as the tempo does get into classic Avenged Sevenfold territory tempo-wise, but still with a clean guitar. The main thing is the clean guitar, but the leads have the distortion on top. Big bass drop into a beautiful piano part while the drums provide more doom and gloom. And then the build-up begins as guitars get more shimmery and higher end. And then it builds to this big tension release as the guitars get more defined. Then you get these, at least at this point, some cool, like, robot effects on the vocals to kind of give off, like, a sci-fi vibe. And, yeah, this song, absolutely beautiful, no question. And then we get to the end of the first half with Beautiful Morning, the second longest at 6.5 minutes. Tension building in the beginning. Then you get a awesome chugging riff on top of, like, a Gojira groove. Then the beats, like, the tempos and the beats do alternate a bit here in certain sections, like the Gojira groove. Then you get into, like, a bit of a gallop, and then the chorus, very doomy chorus. And then, like, all the riff work on this song was a big standout for me. Cool section with some synths, triplet drums, bass, and keyboards. Back to that groove as you get into this, like, probably one of the only leads where it feels like a big dive bomb to feel chaotic. And then you get, like, somber turned creepy piano at the end. So that's the first half. So far, this is an amazing album, the first half. Now we get to the second half where things get a little bit kind of out of control. We get into the shorter songs, the more compact songs. So, like, the average length of these songs would be, like, 3 minutes. Starting off with the song Easier, odd vocoder effects on the vocals that does kind of give off a little bit of, like, a Focus era cynic type of charm, since that was the vocal approach in terms of the non-growling vocals, was using the vocoder to kind of give off an alien type of vibe. Here, definitely here on the second half, like on songs like Easier, Ordinary, they perhaps went for that vocoder effect way too much, and it did kind of take me away from those songs. But there are moments within those songs that I do like in Easier, you do get heavy riffage on top of, like, a bludgeoning doom groove, and a nice hard-rocking lead and a great clean riff. But yeah, just strange because of the vocoder. Then we get into the song G, which is a weird title, but you'll understand why they did it because of the next two titles. But G kind of feels almost like a prog funk rock song. Like, it almost feels like what would happen if Dream Theater, Rush, and Frank Zappa were melded together, and that this is what happens. But no real effects on the vocals. Like, actually, this was actually a fun song for the most part. It is kind of catchy, despite how odd it is, but it is unique. You do get, like, groovy drums, clean guitars, great bass work. That's the highlight of the song, is the bass. Then you get some female vocals, which is the only song that has female vocals. Then we get into Ordinary, which, yeah, this song kind of fell because of the vocoder again, but you do get some moments within that I do like the jazzy bass and clean guitars, almost like Pain of Salvation, Prince, and Daft Punk mixed, which sounds weird, and it is weird, I will say. Like, this is one of the weirder songs of the album. Then you get to the song Death, which now you get why you add the title G, so G-O-D, God. So then we get into the song Death. Faint drums and orchestral moments and soft vocals pretty much all throughout. And then at the end, it turns dark, mysterious, theatrical with the more classical music parts towards the end. So thankfully this song came up because this was one of the highlights of the end of the album. But then we get to the title track, which is mostly just this beautiful piano piece by Sinister Gates. Like, Gates does all the piano parts on this album, which turns out he's a great pianist, so he got to showcase his piano talents on this song, and I thought it was a pretty cool way to end the album, and thankfully it ended like that, otherwise would have felt a little lost. But yeah, so like I said, first half, amazing first half. Second half, they got perhaps too experimental, like, dare I say, avant-garde-ish on the second half. Like, the first half feels like prog metal, like kind of a continuation of the stage, but with some new tricks in the like more tools of the trade. The second half, the thing that takes me out of the second half is whenever the vocoder came in with the vocals. It's like, guys, I love you, but you're not Cynic. I'm sorry, but you're just not Cynic. And then, of course, like I said, there are moments in the second half that I do like, particularly in some of the riffs you would get, or even some of the bass work, or like the unique, like clean guitars. But mainly the final two songs did save the second half from being a disaster, at least in my mind. Death and the title track definitely saved it. G was decent, but not enough really to kind of propel the second half further for me. But I do give them credit. They tried something different. Some of it succeeded. Other times, or like others, kind of not so much for me. But the thing that does keep this album from having a lower score, again, first half, absolutely incredible. It almost makes me wish that could have just been a standalone album right there of just those 6 songs and maybe expand them to be like a 40-minute album. I think that would have been pretty cool. Or at least the first half, and then interweave the final 2 tracks in between some songs. I think that would have made this album very strong. But other than those complaints of, like I said, perhaps got a little too wacky in the second half and the vocoder, still, I think overall, this was a pretty good album. Now, where would it rank in the Avenged Sevenfold albums list for me? I would say, it's kind of tough to say. I really have to listen to it more to really make a judgment call on that. But as far as the score, because of the strength of the first half and the final 2 tracks, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. I think this is pretty good. A little rough around the edges, but again, the band's willing to experiment and try different things. Maybe after this album, they'll have learned some of the mistakes and maybe not go completely out of control whenever the next album were to happen. Hopefully not 7 years. Just don't go 7 years. But, yeah, 8 out of 10 for Life is But a Dream. But of course, that's all just my opinion. What did you guys think of Life is But a Dream by Avenged Sevenfold? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, I forgot to bring it up at the beginning, but I'll bring it up now. There is currently a giveaway going on the YouTube channel. By the time I reach 4,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away 6 CDs. So that video, you can find it in the description box of this video, or if you go to my channel page, that should be the channel trailer video, is the giveaway. All you gotta do is click on that video and leave a comment in that video, and you're entered in the giveaway. And then once I hit 4,000 subscribers, which might still be a while, I will do a random, like, name randomizer, or like a name picker-upper, or whatever the fuck, and that will be how I determine the winner. But anyways, I hope you guys have a good day, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.